Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, we are going back to our roots. We have a podcast we're recording just outside the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, actually doing it live this time, just a little different, but I'm sure we're going to have, there's someone's about to start a truck very close to us. There was a gator,
This,
right?
this guy is moving a bus stop over here, or a bench of some sort.
It is, we are truly going back to our roots, but we're also staying true to one of our big themes of the last 12 months or so. We got to talk about Connor Stalions and the new Connor Stalions documentary.
Yeah, I assumed I would watch. I did watch it today, so I assumed I would, but I also wanted to read other reviews and whether it's message board reviews, Twitter reviews, just to get an idea. And I feel like I watched it before I actually watched it, and then after watching it, I feel like I've watched it twice now, and I've got a lot of thoughts. If you guys have seen, have any questions, throw them in. If you've got questions, Tom,
I'm going to have a lot of questions because I have not watched it.
Yeah,
we are off of Netflix right now, so I do not have Netflix. I was not about to sign up for it. When I saw the trailer, I kind of went, I know what this is going to be, and I'm not going to bother worrying about it. I'm sure we might not even talk about it. And then you saw the ESPN story this morning. It was like, oh Lord, we're going to have to talk about this, aren't we?
Well, and here's what the foundation that we can lay when we talk about this, and when you're considering watching it or considering anything about it. Towards the end of the documentary, you have they have like video of the Zoom call with Connor Stalions, his two attorneys, and the NCAA.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the questions from the NCAA is, as a legit bus stop, this is amazing, Tom, is being moved right past the show, which
it's a soccer bench. It's
yeah,
fine.
there you go.
I'm going to record video just so people don't think we're making this up. There's us right now on the live stream. There's the soccer bench getting dragged across the parking lot.
And there's also some weed whacking going on the other side of the building. So we wanted to get this done for you. But the first question that they show is basically like, did you purchase tickets for people for the purposes of advanced scouting? Or like the advanced scouting is implied. It's like, I never did any advanced scouting. And then the next question, or one of the next questions that they show is, were you at the Michigan State Central Michigan game on, say, September, whatever it was? And his answer was, I don't recall being.
Right.
So this is a guy who has memorized thousands of signals,
mm-hmm.
but can't recall where he was less than a year ago, knowing that, were you at this specific game? I can't recall. So that is a lie. So everything else you have to take with a gigantic grain of salt, and also know that it's coming from a place where this guy is lying to the NCAA, or at least has no memory of it, in which case then can you believe anything else he says if he has no memory? But then also he holds up a picture of the Central Michigan guy that looks like him, and he's like, we don't even look alike.
Yeah, that was one of the first things I saw, which there is a lot that I think the overall trend to a lot of the stuff that got shared on social media on Tuesday morning was, I guess technically there could potentially be some human being on Earth who finds this credible.
Mm.
He doesn't remember if he was on the sidelines for a Central Michigan State game that happened less than a year ago.
Yeah.
Even though there are apparently other people in the documentary who say that he told them that he was there.
Mm-hmm.
This feels like this sort of sets up the credibility piece for a lot of the other stuff. Now, there are people who are rushing out to tell you that, well, actually, you can fit this particular camel through this particular eye of this particular needle because technically, he didn't do the in-person scouting. Listen, Tony, maybe he just, and I want you to correct me on any of this because I'm just getting this from an ESPN.com article. He didn't give anyone instructions to do any in-person scouting. He just bought tickets for friends and family, and the friends and family went to these games, and some of them, seemingly independently, shot video of the signs and signals, sent them back to him. but he didn't need them because he had already decoded it. He had a story involving his, a story, an analogy involving his aunt and Christmas presents. First of all, am I off on my interpretation of what was presented in the documentary? And number two, explain how that all makes sense. Yes.
No, that's in fact, they have one of his buddies that he's gone 2 games with and bought tickets for. They also, his mother and his father are both in it, and his mom said, I went to games for him as well, or he bought me tickets for games for him. Because then he makes a joke, I sent my mom to scout Purdue. It's like, you're not probably scouting Purdue, and that was never that sort of thing. It's always the 8 times to an Ohio State game or whatever. But I also have it's interesting to me that he would buy tickets, and he said he also resold these, which I think there's proof of that, because there are times where they didn't need anybody. Allegedly,
if someone was scouting in advance for games,
you wouldn't always need.
They wouldn't necessarily. So therefore, you might have
go ahead and resell that if that was the situation. But you're buying tickets for all of these Michigan fans for games that aren't Michigan. It's like, really. I was going to hope to stay home and watch the Wolverines, but you want me to go watch Purdue and Ohio State? I guess I'll go do that. I like college football, and that's kind of how it's presented with the mom and his friend and nobody else in this in terms of going and seeing games for him. But he can't recall who would send him stuff and things like that. A lot of things that I can't recall, which would be helpful if he could.
Yeah, well, it would really help clear it up, and I'm sure he would love to recall those things.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
It feels like there's a little bit of a credibility gap there, which then when people are taking a lot of this, there's a broad spectrum of people in terms of credulousness on the internet, depending on various subjects at this time, shall we say. Some of the people who are look, that's what he says. Obviously, he said it on a documentary. He was obviously under oath, Tony. That's how documentaries work. So I put this on Twitter, and I quote tweeted, you just sent a screenshot of the ESPN article, and I said, this is why lawyers advise their clients not to talk. Like, you think you're setting this up as, oh, well, I have fooled all of these morons who think that actually I was just being a good son, and actually I'm also a good nephew because I tell my aunt I like my Christmas presents even when I don't. And I think the only people who are being fooled are the people who have a vested interest in this being, well, this has to be true because he said so, therefore, case dismissed.
Well, and I know there's a segment of people who happily get lied to every day, whether it's on YouTube or what, and as long as you're hearing what you want to hear, people will lie to you and collect your money and your views and all of that. That's part of why I'm calling this the Connor Stalions Netflix comedy special, because it's not a real documentary. And
Connor Stalions raw. Did he wear I didn't watch again, but did he have the leather jacket? Yeah.
And that's why I'm thinking for some of the people that were in this and being interviewed, I wonder how thrilled they are to be kind of associated with it now, because you don't always you never have control over what is going to be used, how it's going to be used, how it's going to be portrayed, who else is going to be used. And so I don't know how great they feel after the fact in this when they see it, especially towards the end, which is completely irresponsible on another reason why to call it a documentary. It's very sensational in terms of, so the deposition, the conversation with the NCAA when Connor Stalions says, I can't recall, then the Connor Stalions attorney says, we want to know, did you know that somebody has accessed his files, illegally, and where did you get that information? And the NCAA is like, we're not going to give you any information on any of the way this was attained. And he's like, well, I've got a 12 p.m. So that's going to be the end of our, interview session right there. So that's where it kind of cuts off. And then there are weaving this little narrative at points through the story, pointing all of this at Ohio State in terms of where the hacking. And it's like they show headlines of 230,000 people impacted by data breach at University of Michigan, and then implying that somebody at Ohio State is responsible for this. And Connor Stalions' attorney says Connor never sent any of this information to anybody. So how did they get it? And then they believe his email was hacked. It's like, well, are you sending it to email? Like, what do you there's some.
Is there a chainsaw operating 15 feet from us right now?
Yes, there is.
You know there is.
So there's some interesting things like that. And it's all kind of, you just have to, you start with the lies, and that clouds everything else.
It does. And I think there is, this is something where if you have what's the legal saying? If you have the facts, pound the facts. If you have the something, pound the law. If you have the law, pound the law. And if you don't, pound the table.
Right. Yeah.
I'm perfectly willing to entertain the idea that whatever, if there's some proof of that, I'm for sure. I'm not saying. I mean, it's like there was some point that Dan Wetzel, I guess, said something about he's FOIA'd a bunch of other schools and a bunch of other schools, he hinted had done some sort of in-person something, right?
And that was maybe like a 20-second snippet of a handful of schools, and 3 to 5 to 8, something like that.
Yeah.
It's not a major part of this, but it's going to be something that Michigan fans might latch onto, which is that everybody does it. But again, there's a part where I think I was trying to remember all of the different things in terms of I think Dan Wetzel says everybody does it. Everybody does this. Everybody has this kind of a situation. That every kind of has this kind of a staff and this plan. And Connor Stalions, and like the next scene is like 80 to 90% of the people do this. Like 80 to 90% of the football programs do this. It's like, well,
I mean, citation needed. Again, if you have something that documents that, like, by all means. Now, the Dan Wetzel thing, and he's FOIA'd this stuff. If you FOIA'd this stuff, what are you waiting for to put it out? If you have it, are you waiting for some moment when, oh boy, narratively this is going to be very advantageous to put it out when when the Michigan punishments come down, and then I'm going to put this out, and like, why would you not put it out? Like, get your information and put it out. It's that's one of those things that people have been talking about for a while, and it's like, okay, like, by all means, if your school is stupid enough to have FOIA, Freedom of Information Act requests only apply to publicly available information, so you would have had to buy it with a university credit card, you would have had to do it through a university email account. Like, if you're stupid enough to have done that, like, by all means, yeah, you should get punished too, 100%. That's. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, on the side of the information around Stallions and what Stallions is accused of doing. Boy, there's a lot of documentation about all of that. Mm-hmm. And so then you want to make the conversation about how that information came out and not about the documentation. Right. But then when it's the other stuff where there's not information about it, then you want to make the conversation about that, even though there's not any documentation to back that up.
And the way we've all watched documentaries, like true crime documentaries, they always, towards the end, they have the twist, which is the real truth. And it's kind of how this is portrayed. Oh, it makes you think, doesn't it? It's like, I would love to, put it out there in terms of put the facts out there, not the speculation.
Right.
And then present it as something more, which is what a lot of documentaries do, what a lot of,
sure,
the narrative storytelling arc, like you surprise them at the end with something, and to put this out there, I don't think it's a great look.
Well, there's a lot of what I figured about the Stallions documentary, I figured based on the fact that he was in it.
Yep.
If you are someone like that, the Dan Wetzel does not get final cut or approval on what goes into the documentary or whatever. The message board guy does not get final cut on that.
Nicole Auerbach.
Nicole Auerbach doesn't.
Dave Portnoy might.
Yeah, even he probably doesn't. If you're Connor Stalions, and this is the Connor Stalions story, and you know how this works, you might say, listen, I want editorial control over this. And that might be something that they're willing to give you because of this, the scope of the story and that kind of stuff. So the fact that that's even out there, and the fact that this is being presented as Connor Stalions' story, like, of course this is going to be told from Connor Stalions' perspective, and of course they're going to say the things that they say. What was crazy to me was some of the stuff that, like, you put out there, and this is in there as, oh yeah, I bought the tickets, but it wasn't for this. It was, and he got a game ball for the 2022 Iowa game, and I had someone in my mentions say, oh, you wouldn't believe how many people get game balls. It's like, boy, when you see, I think Kevin Wilson, someone got a game ball after an Ohio State game, and they were like really emotional that it was a couple of years ago. It was a coordinator, a defensive, a position coach or something got a game ball in the locker room, and it was a big emotional thing because this is a big deal. And then it's like, oh well, I mean, Tony, everyone gets it. They give out like 72 game balls.
The cheerleaders
a week. Like,
throw them out to the crowd.
Yeah. That was something else that I saw Danny Cannell tweet. Jim Harbaugh knew, which is like, I don't know that the fact that Connor Stalions got a game ball changes my opinion on the likelihood that Jim Harbaugh knew. Like, Jim Harbaugh knew, yes, he was the sign stealing guy. Yes, he's a sign stealing guy. Does the fact that he got a game ball mean that he knew exactly how he was doing it? Doesn't. That doesn't change anything about that necessarily to me. But if you're someone who is so well respected within the program and so highly thought of within the program and such a crucial piece of the program, either you're getting asked, how do you do it? Or you're not getting asked because it's one of those, I don't want to know the answer situations.
Well, and one of the conclusions I've come to from watching this is every program, major college football program and major basketball, whatever, would do well by having somebody like Connor Stalions in the program, somebody who has wanted to be part of the program since he was born, basically, and his family was all Michigan. He's all Michigan, would pay his own way to fly from California to Michigan for game weeks or whatever, and dedicates hours upon hours in helping his program win. However, when you have somebody like this, and head coaches know it, you have to be aware of what that kind of mentality can become. And then it goes back to as coaching with players, you're either coaching it or allowing it. Yeah. And if you know what he's capable of and you say, I don't want to know, then you are also allowing it, knowing what is going to come from that. So I think you have to direct these kind of people, and they are like, he is laser focused, and he will work 24 hours a day for 3 straight days and then take a 4-hour nap and then get right back to it. But you have to direct them, or else if you just unleash them, then, it's like, what's going to happen from that, which is also damning.
Right. And that's something that that's not unique to this. This is, I kind of look at that, and it ties into what did Jim Harbaugh say at Big Ten Media Days in 2021?
Going to beat Ohio State or die trying.
So that's something that at that point you stop ruling out, hey, if someone is that crazy, if you've got, I'm going to circle back to the movie Swim Fan, Tony, which I'm sure you remember from the early 2000s.
MTV production.
Was it? Okay, well, there you go. An MTV production, one of the most rock and jock, I believe that was also a documentary, rock and jock documentaries of all time. If you're a little too into it, like, that at some point becomes a problem, and a little too into it, if you're willing to overlook that, like, that's how this stuff happens. And like you said, if you allow it, you're approving it. Yeah. So do we want to get through?
We
got some questions, and we do need
minutes.
We do need to wrap this up in about 15 minutes because we have a Ryan Day press conference, and I'm sure right now people are saying, why are you? It's a game week. Why are you talking about this? Don't worry, we are going to have a whole Ohio State show coming up a little later. We're going to have at noon. We'll have another live stream of the Ryan Day press conference with Jim Knowles and Will Howard, and then after that we'll have a live Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning episode talking about all the stuff we learned from that and answering your questions at that point. So we're going to have plenty of Ohio State Akron coverage. Don't you worry.
I mean, we're talking about it because people want to talk about it.
We're talking about it.
And it just dropped. So
yeah, we are going to get to all that a little bit later on. I'm just scrolling back through questions. If you have questions, by all means, throw them in the chat. We will try and get to them. I just kind of did a quick run through. Woody says Connor bought tickets to the Penn State Ohio State game on separate sidelines. Seemingly, his relatives must hate each other. Tony,
I mean,
who? There's a line from what is it? Tolstoy. All happy families are the same. All unhappy families are different. Maybe he has one of the different kinds of unhappy families.
I'm just trying to remember if the mother and the father were interviewed in the same room. I can't recall that they were, so you might be onto something there.
Were the vacuums mentioned at all?
No, nothing there, nothing like that.
Jordan Kapler, I know the talk of the town is the horse guy, but can we get your thoughts on Lane Kiffin? Now, Lane Kiffin, I think, as far as I know, all Lane Kiffin has done in the last day or so was tweet out the article, which I saw someone respond to you this morning that, now you like ESPN. Yesterday you were all mad about the $20 million article, and it was like, what? I don't remember Tony being mad about that. No. And also the source of that article was literally Ohio State's athletic director. So,
which, I don't know that it's all that great for Ross Bjork to be throwing out numbers like that, but that's Lane Kiffin has done this a couple times now with Ohio State, and as much as people want to think it's throwing shade at Ohio State, it's also like kicking his boosters in the butt as well. This is the number. Yeah. I'm trying to tell you guys in all kinds of meetings, texts, and phone calls, trying to tell you that we need more. Here's proof from an actual athletic director.
Well, and that number has gone up quite a bit because it was only a year or so back that Ryan Day was talking about needing, I think he floated the idea of needing $13 million to keep the roster together. And now it's $20 million. And then you're looking at the proposal that the number might be 2, 4, 3, whatever it is. That number keeps going up. Yeah, that in the same way that we talk about coaches talking to their players through the media and during press conferences, that is Lane Kiffin talking to his boosters and saying, look, I can tell you this, or I can just look, this is you want us to be at the level that Ohio State's at. Here's what it's going to cost.
Plus, I think we would all be hypocrites if we suddenly get mad at Lane Kiffin for tweeting.
Yeah,
that's why people like him.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, the most excited I've ever been for the Egg Bowl, and I love the Egg Bowl because it is so stupid, but the most excited I've ever been for the Egg Bowl was when Lane Kiffin and Mike Leach were on the opposite sidelines. There was a member of the Ohio State beat who covered Mississippi State football and Mississippi football, and I talk to him all the time about that because it's like it's one of those, like, if I didn't have any responsibilities, I seriously might have just dropped everything and gone down to cover that because that just is such unique characters in the sport. Here's one from Eric Montoya. He says, I don't remember who recorded wall and seats I paid for. How do you know they recorded wall and seats you purchased? Because they sent me the videos, but I did not need them. That's the other piece of this is, like, you're so smart that you figured all of this stuff out, and you did it off of the TV copy. Like, show me on the TV copy, like, while you're watching the Ohio State game tomorrow on Saturday, like, watch how often they show the sideline. Now, on the Ohio State sideline, on the TV copy, you got guys holding up signs behind them. I don't know how many signs
may change this year.
It may be different this year, correct? I don't know how much that's going to be, but go back and watch a previous year. You're not getting that off of the TV copy. You get maybe 2 shots of guys showing signs, throwing signs during any individual game, especially if they're on the home sideline.
I will also say there is a lot of plausibility in what Connor Stalions is saying. However, when you also include, I don't recall,
right,
it throws it all out.
Yeah. I don't recall if I was at the Central Michigan State game. I don't have a tremendous memory, Tony, but I can remember being at football games last year.
And he talks about how basically what separates him is everybody does the science thing. What separates him is how organized he was and the way he employed it. But then also, I can't remember whose tickets, who sent me video. I can't remember being on a sideline. So, like, that's, again, it clouds it all, and it completely taints the entire product.
Let's see. Here's one, and this is, while we're throwing out sort of theories on where all the information came from, Roger Mason says one glaring omission is no mention of gambling interest. They were the whistleblowers. That's another thing that's been, there's been lots of theories that it was a disgruntled former Michigan staffer, that it was the casinos, because if you look at Michigan's record against the spread, boy, it is incredible over those couple of years. They were outperforming their expectation, outperforming all the metrics. How are they doing it? What was throwing things off of the expected performance? Well, it could have been anything.
Yeah, the industry got involved and blew the whistle. And there are several other theories out there, but the one that they threw out there was that Ohio State, did they do this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Mason says the verdict is everyone stole signs. Michigan didn't, then did, and became better than everyone.
That's exactly also he that's the story. That's what Connor Stalions said. Like Michigan was behind, and he watched. I think he said he was watching a Michigan game, and he could tell that everybody. No, it was a Michigan beat reporter watching a game before Connor Stalions came on full time in 21 or 22, and said like you could just watch and tell like the opponent knew Michigan signs because they weren't that good in like 2017 or 2018 when they're. I mean, how could you possibly stop that? The team in 2018 or whatever. But yeah, Michigan was behind the times, and boy howdy did Connor Stalions get him caught up pretty quickly.
And here's one from Chad. I heard this Netflix special made Michigan look bad. Is that true? Because I mean, this is done from the Connor Stalions perspective. You would assume. How many were there other people on the Michigan staff or from
Michael
Michigan
Barrett,
team?
linebacker, Barrett, okay. Was the only guy.
Okay. Was this done? How does Michigan come out of this looking? I guess Michigan as an institution, not necessarily Connor Stalions.
I think you're seeing it maybe from more national people who, whether it's Danny Cannell saying that Harbaugh knew. I guess Stuart Mandel wrote something on The Athletic that clearly this was a crock, the Netflix special itself. So if there's no Michigan fan watching this right now and going, oh, I don't feel great about this. Like,
yeah,
Now I'm pretty convinced that Connor Stalions and Michigan did not act alone or whatever. So, but it's interesting to get the national people saying like, well, this, because a lot of people have been dismissive of this at times on the national side, and maybe less so now after watching it. So I think in that way, Michigan doesn't come off great. The game ball I don't think helps either.
Yeah, that's one of those things where it's like, boy, you put that out there. It's just one new little piece of information. If you're looking at that, and you're saying this is either good or bad in terms of like it's not good.
No,
it's not something that helps the narrative that this is just the low level staff or random low level staff.
In terms of Uncle Rico saying most reactions I've seen have been negative, as in it backfired. I would agree with that. Even I have seen some Michigan fans, because I go and let's see what the responses are on the message board, and some are like, it doesn't make them look great, but the majority think this helps exonerate. Like using beating Michigan State, the documentary does this. So like they didn't have the signals. The Connor Stallions wasn't on the sideline for Michigan State in 2023, and Michigan State loses. Michigan goes on to win 49-0, and it's kind of treated as an aha.
Yeah,
and like using a victory over Michigan State as proof of anything,
right?
Is specious, but it doesn't make Michigan look good, but none of this has, and yet plenty of people are fine with that.
All right, so let's go real quick through a couple more questions that I have saved, and then we are going to have to head inside for the Ryan Day press conference in just a few minutes. Let's go to Jordan Kapler. Says, I used to like Buckeye Huddle back when there were gators driving around and not buses. Shows really going downhill. Yeah, we have once again a forklift dragging another soccer bench. We had the chainsaws earlier. I mean, we've gone from buses and leaf blowers to forklifts and chainsaws. I think this is, Tony, you gotta adapt. You can't just keep things the same. You gotta adapt, but you gotta stay true to who you are as a core piece. And I think the Sonic experience, while we have adapted, I think the Sonic experience has remained true to itself. Yeah, it's just getting back to our roots. The football season is officially here as another little gator gets to run by. And so, yes, the sounds. I sat here for 15 minutes before you came over and we started the show. There might have been one thing that drove by, and then as soon as we start, it is I was over there and I saw this all getting ready to happen because I'm walking by all of these things. It's like the scene in the Truman Show where he's about to drive and all the cars are parked and then they all just pull out in front of him and it's a traffic jam. I'm not saying we are the main characters of reality, but it's like a Rube Goldberg machine of noise that I just saw getting ready to be. Here comes the one marble, and boom, everything happens. Blue Wolverine, appreciate you being here. Leaf blower, train horn, and phone notifications. Yes, it is. We are dinging. We are honking. We are doing all sorts of fun stuff here. Deborah Ann wants to know, did we call each other this morning about the gray shirts? No, we did not. This is sometimes the universe just brings these wonderful things together. Our blue shirts are just dirty. David says, will Tom be reading any more legal documents? I find it entertaining. almost certainly yes, but not today. I don't have
Well,
anything. I don't.
Don't say not today.
Well, not on this show.
Okay.
If we're wrapping up, we're probably not going to get to any more. Shane says the guy with the chainsaw is a Michigan grad. I mean, I'm not saying he's not. I mean, it's possible.
He was not chopping at the Buckeye trees, though. So
yeah. And Chris, who has a Michigan helmet as his avatar, says no one nationally gives a crap. Stop crying. I got to tell you, this show today is a direct response to the fact that Connor Stalions put out a documentary today. So we would not be talking about it today unless there was something that had come out. And I had seen Matt Brown, for example, writer of the Extra Points newsletter, an Ohio State graduate, said essentially on Twitter, like, I know this is probably sacrilegious, but I'm having trouble getting too wound up about the Connor Stalions stuff right now. And that's fair. Like, you're allowed to feel that way. And people who are still annoyed by it are allowed to still be annoyed by it. That's fine. Like, not everyone has to have the same opinion. I also think there is a certain segment of people who can't wait to tell you this is all old news. Why are we still talking about it? And a lot of that has to do with, I don't want to talk about it anymore because I don't like the way the conversation's going.
And just because the news may be old doesn't mean the thing still didn't happen.
Exactly. Yeah. And, a lot of folks here, echoing what Todd said. Why is this no big deal in fun and games of players getting tattoos for their own property was such a big deal? Nobody felt sorry for Jim Tressel or Terrell Pryor. I mean, functionally that's all legal now. I mean, we can quibble about, I have to do some paperwork or something.
Yeah.
But functionally, that's all legal now. And if you're looking at, certainly there are people who think that in-person scouting might be something that the NCAA looks at legalizing at some point, and that's fine if that happens, and we can have that conversation. But I think those two things. There have been a lot of people getting freezing cold takes over their. Desmond Howard had one about the sanctity of the universe and whatever from 2011. That
Jim Harbaugh has his own tweets.
Oh yes, he does.
So,
yes, he does.
What a tangled web.
So I think we're probably good.
Okay.
So let's wrap it up, and then let's go talk to Ryan Day.
Yeah, we will wrap it up. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Just a reminder, once you jump off of this, go ahead and jump on the other live stream that I'm sure Kevin has got going right now with Ryan Day, Jim Knowles, and Will Howard. So thank you all for tuning in. Hit the thumbs up before we go, and we will talk to you guys.